Thank you. Thank you very much, madam. Thanks for this invitation, and it's a pleasure for sharing whatever I have learned about report writing. And I am passionate about writing reports, and that's what, when you asked me, I readily agreed that okay, let us discuss about writing reports. A research report is one type, we can say, and there are several different types of reports. I am constantly involved in writing several different reports, so that way whatever I have gathered, maybe I thought I will be able to share with you today. So let me share my slide and get started. I hope it is visible, right?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Fine. So this one, I call it the nuts and bolts of writing research reports. Although it's not just about nuts and bolts, we need to discuss also about the contours of a research report. Here, maybe I can just quickly tell you what is it that we have in store for today. The broad contours of a research report. When you think of a research report, what are the broad contours that we need to bear in mind? That is one. And then what is the conventional format for research report, which I think I don't have to tell you, all of you, perhaps you have gone through research reports, and by now I'm sure many of you know the conventional formatting of a research report. And then I take it in a different tone, that suppose you have a conversation about a research study, and which can tell you the structure of your report. If somebody is in conversation about your research, and in that conversation, how your research report structure can come in. So that is something that we can discuss. And then I mentioned it is about academic writing, and maybe we may have to know how do you distinguish narration, description, explanation, reason, logic, evidence, all these. So we'll see that. And then obviously, those of you who are involved in research, I'm sure you know of the various style guides you are supposed to use. And some of you, maybe very few of you may be doing it manually. And now many people are doing automated citations using several online tools. We'll see that also. And then writing up your research, your thesis. And from the beginning of the session, this particular lecture, I'll keep repeating only about thesis. How do you argue about your thesis, and what do you come out with, such things. And then when you write your conclusion, what do you need to bear in mind? When you write recommendations, where the recommendation should flow from? How do you write an abstract, summary, keywords? And then suppose you think you have come out with something mind-blowing from your research, and you want to bring out a policy note which can go to the government as a recommendation also. It is because often in our research, maybe perhaps as one of the objectives, our last objectives, we state that I'm going to come out with a policy note also. Maybe if you want to write a policy note, what kind of a policy note will be of help? So this is what we'll be seeing. So I say, as we saw, I call these nuts and bolts. You can just take a look at here. To cut a tomato, what tool we need and what tool are we using? This is just to give a simple analogy of the need for the right tool, because we are often talking about research methodology, research methods, research tools, and all that. And so this can clearly sit in your mind when you see this, that when I have to cut a tomato, which of these tools I will use? None of these tools will be of use, because maybe because I am very good in using a spanner or cutting plier or a pipe wrench, spanner or screwdriver. I am very good in using all these. Just because I am very good in using all these, I cannot try to use all these to cut a tomato. To cut a tomato, you need a sharp knife, but which you don't seem to have here. So this is how we must look at our research, that to deal with a given problem, do I have the right tool with me? Do I have the right research design? And when I have to write my report, am I using the right tools? Do I have the right tools with me? This is how we must look at it. So we say that whatever data that we have collected, it is called data. Initially, we call data debris. By debris, what we mean, as we go, we'll see the broken remains of something is called debris. As we go, we'll see. So if this is what we have collected, how do we make sense of it? Right? That's the purpose of reporting. You have collected a lot of data. Now you have to put forth an argument. You have to put forth what you communicate through your data, what your data asks you to speak about. So how to make sense of the data you have collected. That's what we are trying to do. Right. So in our daily lives, we make many value judgments constantly. We say this program is effective, this program is not effective, we are providing quality service to our clients, and this program is waste of money to the government. In this institution, women are discriminated against. There is no accountability in this office. We are not getting enough water. Tamil Nadu is on top of women empowerment. So we make statements like this, and these statements, unless they are supported by data, reason, evidences, these will be seen as value judgments only. These will be seen only as opinion of people or value judgments you are making, because this, you cannot call them as research statements made. So you collect data and you try to recognize a pattern. Right, you collected several pieces of data. You are trying to put them all together to be able to find out a pattern from your data, to be able to talk what your data suggests you to talk. What your data suggests, it is not that you have something in mind and you are talking. Your data, when you analyze your data and there is a pattern emerging, and that pattern that emerges from the data makes you to talk something, right? It must be like that. So you have classified your data, you have tabulated, you have analyzed. Now, how to make these tables, graphs, and notes speak coherently with clarity. There must be coherence, there must be clarity. And if you say there is chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, there are several different elements in that. There can be tables, graphs, notes, and there are several different things you have put them. But all said and done, do they all make a coherent story? Do they give a clear story to the reader? That is what it matters, and that is what report writing is about. So if I have collected the data, have I been able to analyze properly, and have I been able to coherently put it across in a clear way so that I am able to communicate to the world, this is what my data suggests me to talk about a given phenomena, right? Whatever be your topic, right? So what is the ultimate purpose of your research report? There is a fund of existing knowledge, right? In any discipline, it can be management, it can be commerce, it can be rural development, it can be sociology, economics, it can be any discipline for that matter. There is a fund of existing knowledge already available, right? Your research adds to this existing body. That's what you are climbing, right? In your PhD, in your thesis, through your research, what you are climbing is that there is a fund of knowledge already existing. That's what you call the literature review. You review many people's papers. So there is an existing knowledge, and you are trying to add to this body of knowledge, and sometimes you can confirm to the existing body of knowledge, or you can make corrections to that, or you can dismiss that this is no more valid. This is maybe about 50 years ago, 60 years ago, this was all true, but now in the current scenario, in the current situation in India, especially in the area where I conducted my research, this is not valid. I will dismiss this. I will disprove this. You can argue in whatever way you want, but you have something that your data tells you to talk, you are talking. For example, these days I find that there are not many poverty related studies, right? And it is more so in developed countries. There are studies on well-being, there are studies on quality of life, there are studies on happiness. People are trying to measure happiness, life satisfaction. So people have moved away from studying poverty because they think poverty does exist, but when you see there is a lot of progress the world has made, many countries have made, and so there are studies going on well-being, quality of life, happiness, life satisfaction, all these. So, and these are areas that are emerging. And now that we say that after our Doctor of Philosophy, let us say PhD, Doctor of Philosophy, we want to call ourselves also as philosophers, right? That's what the meaning is, that you are having a doctor of philosophy, right? Now there were others also, earlier researchers, maybe the well-known great researchers known to us, like Charles Darwin, for example, Adam Smith, for example, Max Weber, for example, D. Sears, for example. So these people came with their philosophies, and they have their own statements. They have made several different statements. In each research, they have made their statements. For example, the last one I have given about D. Sears. This man has analyzed the data of several different countries, and you see, he is saying that you leave me in any country and give me data for these 3 data points. The 3 data points that he is asking here, I have given here, and I will be able to tell you if this country is making progress or it is in regression mode. So his questions are, what has been happening to poverty? He wants data, 10-year data. Give me 10-year data on what has been happening to poverty, what has been happening to unemployment, what has been happening to inequality. Just give me 10-year data for these 3 variables, if you can call them. So I will tell you what's happening in this country. I will tell you what's happening in this country. So he is saying, that's all his questionnaire is. Any country, he's saying, any country, let me go to any country. I don't have a big questionnaire. I have these 3 questions only in my questionnaire, and I want data for these 3 questions and 10-year data. Give me, I'll be able to give you a thesis about that country, he's saying, right? And because the other day, whenever I had time, I was listening, and somebody was asking, how many questions you think in a questionnaire must have, right? So it depends on your ingenuity, how you are going to use the data, what data you need. Right. So what has been happening to poverty? What has been happening to unemployment? What has been happening to inequality? Tell me this, I'll be able to tell you about your country. That's what his claim is. Like this, each one they have made contributions. Like, for example, I hope you are able to recognize all these great people. Jagdish Bhagwati, he's saying that his thesis is, right, we say thesis. I mean, all these, whatever PhD or research we are talking about, we say this is talking thesis. Right, a thesis is basically a scientific argument. So Jagdish Bhagwati, he is saying that progress in GDP, just see the progress in GDP and focus on improving the GDP, then everything else will be in place. That is one person's thesis. And he is working on this over a lifetime. And there is another person saying, you can see the one on the right here. I hope you are able to recognize who is this Abhijit Banerjee. He's saying it is about how GDP is distributed so that the poor get the major share, leading to reduction in inequality. Then only I will say that there is development taking place. If you want to say that there is development taking place, it is not just GDP. It is about how GDP is distributed among the people there in a country, so that the poor get the major share, leading to reduction in inequality. That is what development is about. That is his thesis. And there is another person, you have Professor Amartya Sen on the other side on left, you see, and he is of a different view in the sense that is his thesis. I mean, his thesis, I'm just giving you the just one line. If I have to explain to you or tell you their thesis in one line, this is what I have to tell you. Development is about capability enhancement and opportunity to choose what I value doing. That is his thesis. His meaning is that you create opportunities. You create opportunities in the world, create opportunities in any given to make use of those opportunities, and you allow people to choose what they value doing. I value teaching. Somebody values doing working in the bank. Somebody values working in the farm. So allow people to choose what they value doing. So create opportunities, enhance the capability of the people to do what they like doing, what they want choose doing, what they value doing. That is what development is about. So when you talk about thesis, this each one, we have our own arguments, and these are all I call this scientific argument because this is basically a scientific argument that they have. If they are making this statement, they have a whole lot of evidences to support the statement that they are making. This is something that as researchers we need to bear in mind. So research basically is a logical argument. That's what a thesis is. So we must have a premise. What do we mean by premise? It is behind the research, behind every research, there must be a research question, or you have a set of hypotheses, and then your reason for your question. Where is this question coming from? You have a question. Where is this question coming from? What is the reason for the question? And do you have evidences? What the evidences show? You have collected evidences, what the evidences show, and then what is your conclusion? The conclusion my data or evidences suggest. So, and then finally your research procedure or your methodology, is it unbiased? Is it open? And have you clearly explained your methodology to tell your reader that I have been unbiased, that my research procedure has been unbiased? That's what it is about, right? So now here, just let us take an example. The research starts with a big question. I told you any research, maybe all of you listening here, if you are if you have already completed your research or you are doing one, and maybe you have you in your research you had a big question or you have a big question. What is your big question? Just one single big question that you have. Maybe you have several different questions to answer. Yes, you may have several different questions, but all said and done, all that must boil down to one single big question. What is your question, right? So here my one example I have given. Many researchers say that COVID-19 made many families poorer. This is my research, review of literature is showing this. I reviewed many literature on COVID, and many researchers say that COVID-19 made many families poorer. They say many families poorer. I want to scientifically estimate the percentage of families that COVID-19 pushed into poverty trap. That's my research. That's my question, right? Non-poor families that became extremely poor because of COVID-19, right? This is my question. So this is my big question. My question is, many researchers said, yes, many families have become poorer because of COVID-19. I agree. Yes, many families have become poorer because of COVID-19. And my research is, you keep saying many families. Can you estimate and tell me what is the percentage of families that COVID-19 pushed into poverty? The non-poor families, so-called non-poor families that became extremely poor because of COVID-19. Right? And where are they mostly from? Are they from urban or rural area? Which occupations they were involved in? What indicators show us that they have been pushed into poverty trap? What makes you think? What indicators make you think that they have been pushed into poverty trap? So this is how we start analyzing any research, that we have a big question, and within the big question there are several smaller questions like we have here. That's how we proceed, right? So big question, that's your source of objectives, right? When you have a big question, and that question only becomes the source of your objectives. You write 3-4 questions, but all those 3-4 objectives, where are those objectives coming from? All those objectives are coming from your big question. And then from objectives, you can also, from your questions and objectives, you can also have your hypothesis. And hypothesis, it is a tentative answer. Maybe you have a tentative answer, or intuitively you have a tentative answer. And do you have a tentative answer? So that the question intuitively, or by reading between the lines of previous researchers through your literature review, you have a tentative answer. Maybe you have a tentative answer, that is hypothesis. And do you have the key to solve that puzzle? What do I mean by the key? That is, how you decided how you are going to approach this problem to unravel that big question. This is a big question. Did really COVID-19 pushed families to become poorer? This is a big question. And do you have the research procedure? Do you have the methodology? So this is what we call the question, the hypothesis, and the method, right? The question, hypothesis, and methods. So do you have the key to solve this puzzle? This is a puzzle to me, or this is a big question to me. If COVID-19 really pushed families poorer, and if poorer, what percentage of family and where do they come from and what occupations they were involved in? These were the questions. So do you have the key to solve this puzzle? Do you have the answer to this, right? So suppose you have a wrong key, wrong key. By wrong key, what I mean is erroneously designed methodology. That's what I began with, that using a screwdriver to cut a tomato, right? Erroneously designed methodology, it doesn't help solve the problem. But you have put in 3-4 years trying to solve that puzzle, because research usually takes 3-4 years, PhD level research. You have put in 3-4 years of your work, hard work, and then you cannot declare failure. You cannot declare failure because you have been into this for 3-4 years now. And so knowingly or unknowingly, you break open the lock, right? You break open the lock and declare, yes, it's done. I have found the answer. Right. So finally, we say that, yes, fine, down, excellent, I have done. It's over. I have found the answer. Right. Whether right or wrong, we have come out with an answer. But the methodology used, maybe we had several different tools, but which methodology we used, and did we really use the right method to come out with an answer? All that is unknown. Now, suppose it is like this. You can. I'm sorry. Right. I have my tools box. I have my tools box, and in my tools box that I have all these tools I have, and I don't know which one to use where. I don't know which one to use where, even as a method or my tool, or even when it comes to structuring my report, or how do I scaffold my arguments, and how do I bring in evidences, right? How do I analyze my data, right? How do I present? So all these, I mean, I have several different tools in my tools box. I don't know which one to use where. So somehow I use a hammer. I use a hammer to drive down a screw, and I use a saw to cut an apple. And then I have spanner here, which I will be using to perhaps pull out this nail. So I somehow or the other, I'm trying to find out something so that I should say that, yes, it is done, completed, submitted. So this should not happen. Suppose we say that that way we have opened a lock, maybe we have broken open, we have used the wrong key, we have used the wrong key, or we have used wrong tools, and we have somehow broken and opened the lock. But the scientific community may not accept it as having unraveled the puzzle or as having answered the question. This is something we must understand, right? So we must, whatever research that we come out with, the scientific community must accept it as having this is an excellent way of approaching this problem, and this man has come out with a good methodology, and it looks very much unbiased, scientific, and then he has come out with an answer. Means that is fine. But if the scientific community does not accept the way we have unraveled the question or have answered the question, then that becomes a problem, right? And so, this is what we call data torturing. You torture the data to come out with something. If you torture the data long enough, it will confess to anything, right? I know there is a very senior researcher. He, openly said in a forum, you give me your data, you tell me you want me to prove it or disprove it, I will tell you how to do that. You want to prove it, tell me how you want, tell me. You want to disprove it, tell me. I will tell you how to prove it, I will tell you how to disprove it, the same data. So that is, that means what? This is the way to do that. Erroneously, you can use any tool and do what you want to come out with. So that should not happen, right? So don't conclude before you have sufficient data to support. You must have sufficient data to support, then only you can. And there is also a book about it that that's what I have given at the side here, a field guide to lies and statistics, right? In how many different ways statistics is used for telling lies. So this is a book by Daniel Levitin, and maybe some of you have gone through this, and a field guide to lies and statistics. It's not expensive, you can buy also, and it's an interesting book on how statistics can become deceptive. Okay, so as a researcher now, my point is there are many decision points that you have to take. One is my research design okay? Am I using the right methodology? Am I using the right tools? Am I using the right structuring for my report? Is my chapter schemes, chapterization okay? Shall I go conventional structuring of my report or decide my own structure? This is an important thing. Shall I go with a conventional structuring or decide my own structure, right? Such things you have to decide. Where does my sentence end? Where does an idea end? Where does a paragraph end? Where does a new idea begin? Right. So it is, when it comes to research, it is not just about methodology and then some tools like regression, correlation. It is not just them. You need to, this is what I mean by tool. Where, I mean, where does a sentence end? Where does an idea end? Where does a paragraph end? Where does a new idea begin? Right? Am I finally, ultimately, am I answering the questions I set out answering? I promised my readers, I promised my reviewers that I'm trying to answer these questions. I had certain questions to answer. That's what I set out with, right? Promising that I'm going to answer these questions. And am I really progressing in the right direction to be able to answer the questions I set out answering? Right? Is my conclusion generic or pointed? It is possible sometimes you see, after having done so much work and finally you read the conclusion part of any report, a research report, and it is disappointing. The conclusion part, especially when you read, it is disappointing because conclusion is supposed to be pointed. That is where you need to drive down, drive down your nail, right? That is the place where you need to drive down your nail and then prove your point. But there we find sometimes when it is generic, you get disappointed. Why did this person did so much analysis, used so many tools, all that, to finally to come out with a well-known fact? It is just something very generic that this man has come out with. Somebody should not talk like that. Your conclusion must be pointed. If your conclusion has to be pointed, how it should be built, we'll see those things also. So I mentioned finding an appropriate structure or style is important. Right? Mostly in quantitative research design, generally we use traditional conventional formatting, right? Formal style it is used, because mostly in qualitative research we are allowed to use any structuring that you want to. Many qualitative researchers, they use their own structuring, right? You cannot give them a boundary that your introduction must be there, your methodology must be there, all these whatever we are talking about in traditional conventional formatting, we cannot tell them. They have their own, but mostly in quantitative research design and also in mixed research, we go with traditional conventional formatting. Now, this is what qualitative research, they have, you can decide the chapter scheme, structure, elements to cover each chapter. That is left to the researchers to decide mostly. Right. In conventional formatting, maybe you can see that you have a statement of the problem, a conceptual framework, questions, methodology or research design, analysis, discussion, and then conclusion. You have this kind of the main parts. You have this kind of main parts, and and this is a standard conversation. Suppose somebody takes up a conversation with you about your research. Assume somebody, I happen to meet one of you, and then maybe what I would ask, so tell me what's your research about, right? Maybe because you are a researcher, you are currently completed your research, you are doing some other research assignment, or you are now pursuing your research PhD, leading to PhD. So maybe these are questions I might ask, or anybody can ask. So tell me what's your research about? Why did you choose this particular topic? What do you hope to achieve? What question you are trying to answer? I really don't know how much about this, and can you tell me something more about it? Okay, how exactly did you go about doing your research? And what did you find out finally? Right? Finally, what did you find out? How would you explain the relevance or importance? How significant is your study, or what you have done? Is it really significant? Is it really relevant to the current situation? So these are some of the questions that might come. And maybe if you see, these are very, very clear, logical questions. So maybe we can structure our report using this also. For example, I told you, so tell me what's your research about. What you will tell them? Title. What is the title of your research? Maybe you can tell them the abstract also. You cannot explain the entire thesis. Abstract. Maybe if they still don't understand, give some introduction and what are the research questions or hypotheses that you have framed. Maybe this is what you will tell them, right? So tell me what's your research about. This is one, right? And then the next, I'm sorry. And then the next is, and why did you choose this particular topic? Why did you choose this particular question? So what he wants to know is statement of the problem, right? How do you problematize this? How do you problematize this? What is your rationale? What made you choose this particular topic, right? This is what he wants to know. So this is what you write in the statement as statement of the problem. And then what do you hope to achieve? That's what your objectives and expected outcome, right? What do you hope to achieve? Objectives of the study and expected outcome. And then I don't really know much about this. Can you fill me? Because I'm new to this area and I don't really know much about this. Can you fill me in? Then you give them the literature review. You see, many researchers have studied on this. It is not that I'm set out to study for the first time. Many researchers have set out answering this question, and they have all answered this way. I'm not satisfied. I'm not fully satisfied. I still find a gap there. So I'm getting into research in this particular topic with these questions, with this hypothesis. That's what you will explain, right? And then how exactly do you go about doing this? Yes, I understand, but how exactly do you go about doing this? And that is where we explain the research design, methodological approach, or the framework, methods, techniques, procedures, and the scope, limitation. All these we explain. So how exactly you go about doing your research? And then what did you find out finally? Oh, it's over. You completed your research. Okay, fine. What did you find out finally? So you are explaining the major findings, like I was explaining about Amartya Sen and others. Findings, results, the emergent story, right? You cannot tell him your thesis, the thesis language. There you will tell him in a nice story what's that you came out with, right? And then if it is a thesis, actual thesis, you can see the text, tables, graphs, charts, themes, codes, and discussion, analysis, interpretation, all that you will find, right? And what did you find out finally? That's how you will go. And the next is, how do you explain the relevance or importance? What is the significance of the study? That's where you come with your conclusion, implications for today's world. What is the significance of this for this country, for the state? That's what you are explaining in terms of implications, significance, and what is your recommendation, and what do you think the state should do? What do you think the market should do? What do you think the corporates should do, right? That way you are coming with your recommendations. So if we take our structuring, just by a normal conversation somebody has about the research, and these are the questions, and these, and on the right side, whatever I gave are from the various sections of your research, you can say that. So you can say your research is a kind of conversation. Suppose you take your research as a kind of conversation, you must engage your readers as if they are there to see you, hear your response. This is something you must keep in mind, because when your thesis is sent for a reviewer, it is sent to a reviewer for reviewing, and this reviewer, you are not present there to explain everything to him. Suppose the reviewer doesn't understand something, you are not present there to explain to the reviewer. So you must, every time you write, every sentence you write, every paragraph you write, every idea you write, you must bear in mind, you must engage your reader, your reviewer, as if he is present there, he is seeing you, he is hearing you talk, right? Imagine as if your reader or a reviewer is listening to you, right? If your reviewer is listening to you, what questions he will ask, you must answer all those questions beforehand before it goes for review, right? So if it comes to me for review, what I will ask. So you must ask those questions, you should be able to answer. And then when it comes to the formal style, generally they say it is better to avoid personal pronouns like I as a researcher, it is avoided generally, but now recent research have come, they say just hardly 10-15% of the researchers agree with this statement. So let us not go into that, but if we go with conventional style, it is good not to avoid this personal pronouns like I, we, like that, and we have to go for impersonal statements, and which I will, as we go, those are some of the nuts and bolts that I wanted to discuss with. So as we go, we'll see them. So the key is confident and consistent style. When you write, when your reviewer is reading it, or a reader is reading it, and he must find that you are confident about what you are talking about. You are not, slippery. You are not slippery. You are confident, and your style is consistent. You are writing in a consistent tone. That they must understand. So your structure always evolves as you write. You must understand. Maybe whatever the broad contours that we are talking about, like introduction chapter and review of literature, and then analysis and discussion, maybe all these might look like that we have a clear structure, but all said and done, within each chapter, it evolves. Nobody can tell you what should be the next paragraph, what should be the next subtitle. Nobody can tell you that. Your structure always evolves as it goes, as you write. So, and the structure of a research report generally, this is what it is. I don't have to tell you. For me to tell you, you don't have to be here. You know this, obviously, the title page, abstract, introduction, and then what do you cover in the introduction, research questions, your general questions, and then specific question. What is your conceptual framework or theoretical framework, and methods, design, sampling, and then data collection, data analysis, significance of the study, limitation, references, appendices. So you have all these. And generally, I mean, it is there in any research report, any research report for sample. If you see, it is there. So I don't have to tell you. And so I'm just going quickly. And then, so anything you write, you need to be clear about the objectives of your study, or the question you are trying to answer, or the hypothesis you have in mind, right? Is it relevant to that, right? So that there is focus. So that there is focus. You see, when a reviewer takes your thesis for reading, he must understand that this researcher has a clear focus. He has a clear focus. When will you have a clear focus? You will have clear focus only when you have three things in your mind. Three things. By three things, what I mean, one is you must be very clear about your objectives. Number one. Suppose you have some hypothesis. Yes, you can go. You can have your hypothesis in mind. And the third one is, what are the questions you are setting out answering? There are certain questions you want to answer. What are those questions? So these three things must, if you constantly keep in your mind, there will be very clear focus in your thesis. And many reviewers, what they look for is a focus. And when there is no focus, when your thesis is taking the reviewer in all different directions, then he gets bored and he thinks, oh, this is to be rewritten. Really, this I'm confused where this man is taking me to. I'm confused where this man is taking to, where this thesis is taking me to, what he wants to say and what he wants to answer. I don't really understand. So that is something you need to keep in mind. Your focus must be your priority. Your focus must be priority, and it must take the reviewer, reader in one single line. Right. So that's what I said. So you have your data debris, and by debris, this is what I mean by debris. And this is called debris. When you collected your data, this is how your data looks. This is how your data looks. And you have to make sense out of this. You have to make sense out of this. How do you make sense out of this? And give some structure, design, pattern, color, right? So you got all these, you crushed all these, and then made them into powder, and then started making all these bricks, and then you have brought a pattern there. You see the nicely arranged, designed. This is what you're trying to do in your research. And if this is clear, smooth, then a reviewer will understand that you know what research is, you know what you were searching for, and then it is very clear, coherent. Finally, the conclusion. In the conclusion, you have clearly come out with the answer that you were searching for, right? So this is how you must look at that. And for that, we may have to have several topics, subtopics, main points, all these. And maybe you discussed about mind mapping, all that, I think in yesterday's session. So you may have to do a lot of mind mapping to understand what can be the topic, subtopic, main topic, all that. And you can do it online or manually, whatever way you can do, so that you will be able to come out with information groups to be able to write your thesis in a structured way. You must find out what are the various information groups I have, how I can classify them, which goes with which, and which can appropriately sit where, and that way can I form some information groups. When I have information groups, then I will be able to I'll be able to decide how do I structure my report. How do I structure my report? What should come on the top? What should come in the middle? What should come in the bottom? Right. So that way, so what is with what I'm opening my thesis, and what is there in the middle of the discussion, and how do I conclude this? All this kind of structuring takes place if you have properly done your information grouping. And this structuring, information group, all these, you need to read at least about 20 very good research papers, 20 published research articles or thesis converted in the form of a research article, then only it is possible. And for that, I thought, just for a digression, I thought I can just tell you a small story here. Picasso, perhaps you have heard the great artist, Picasso. Pablo Picasso, it is called, and in Tamil, I think they say in Tamil, Picasso. They in Picasso, they write. This is his name, Pablo Picasso. He's a great artist, and this great artist, when in some marketplace, a lady happened to meet this artist. Yeah, and when this it was surprising for that lady to see that great artist that she happened to run into, right? She happened to meet in a marketplace, and she never expected that she will, in her lifetime, she will see Picasso in her, I mean, in a place like that. So she got excited and ran to Picasso and asked him, "Oh, it's great to see you, and I have been wanting to see you for long. And what such a great artist you are. Can you please quickly draw a picture of me?" She requested. I've seen many of your drawings; they are all excellent. Can you quickly draw a picture of me? And then she handed a paper and a pencil to Picasso. She handed a paper and a pencil. Picasso got that paper and a pencil, and he quickly drew the picture of the lady, just a line drawing of the lady. She got that picture, and this man just drew that line drawing just for 30 seconds. He drew that for 30 seconds and gave it to that lady. That lady got surprised, amazed, and then said, "You see, that's wonderful this is, and such an excellent line drawing that you have done it just in 30 seconds. And this lady said, "Just in 30 seconds you could do this." And Picasso told her that, "My dear young lady, you say you think I have done it in 30 seconds. I didn't take 30 seconds. I took 30 years and 30 seconds to draw this." He said, "It is not 30 seconds I took 30 years and 30 seconds. Meaning that I have been practicing this for 30 years. I have been practicing this for 30 years to be able to do this in 30 seconds. If I am doing it in 30 seconds today, it is because I have been practicing this for 30 years, right? So it is the same thing with the report writing. It is the same thing with the report writing. Report writing, it doesn't come in 1 hour lecture. It doesn't come in 1 hour lecture that I'm going to learn everything about report writing and tomorrow morning I will be able to write excellent report. It is not like that. If you want to write more, you need to read more. If you want to write more, you need to read more. So you need to write more and keep constantly writing more. Only when you start writing, then you understand that how cluttered the ideas are, then you know, you try to slowly understand how to break the clutter and how to bring clarity to what you are writing, how to write coherently. All that will come only by practice. You need to keep practicing. That's why they say at least publish 2 papers, 3 papers when you're doing your research. So, I mean, because many are too much involved in doing research and submitting. In the course of the PhD work, they have never published a paper. It was going like that. And that's the reason they say that while you are into this, you must develop also the art of writing, right? Art and science of, pick up the art and science of writing. So that's it. So if you have a conceptual framework, you can, your structure will evolve as it goes. So essentially what I was telling you, what do you do in your research? Address a question, decide where you stand on the question, review what claims others have made, previous researchers, offer a counter claim. You are giving a counter claim, suppose you don't agree, and support this claim with reasons. Otherwise, you can support this claim with reasons. Have your reasons backed by evidences. Come to a persuasive conclusion. You must have a persuasive conclusion about it, right? So if you take it this way, you can say your stand, decide where you stand on a question, right? Because many of us, if I take a research, I may take a stand. My stand may be different. My approach, my perspective may be different from the perspective you have. For example, somebody who looks at a problem from the management perspective, that is different. But suppose I take the same problem from the employee's perspective, that is different, right? So management perspective may be different, employee's perspective may be different. What is your stand? Right. So this is just an example, management perspective and employees perspective. This is just an example like that. What is your stand? Where do you stand in your question? That is one. And then review what claims others have made, what other researchers, what claims they have made, and offer a counter claim. Suppose you don't agree with, you offer a counter claim to that, right? And then, or you think you can support that, and support this claim with your reasons, that you can support the existing literature also with your reasons. And then you say whatever these previous researchers have done, I support, because even today in my research also I have found out the same thing. So this is true still today. Till today you can support that claim also, and have your reasons backed by evidences. This is what I keep repeating. So anything you say, you must have proper evidences. By evidences, what I mean is that whatever statements you are making, you must have proper data to support what you are talking about. Tomorrow, if you are asked to produce your data, whatever claims you are making, you must be able to produce the data to be able to support the claim you are making, and then finally come to a persuasive conclusion, right? Your conclusion must be persuasive. For somebody like me, when I read, I must be convinced, yes, what this man arguing is correct, because he has very clear reasons, he has very clear data, he has very clear analysis, he has very clear evidences supported. So that way, I must be convinced, somebody must be convinced, right? So to accept your hypothesis or reject your hypothesis, whatever you do, for somebody it must be convincing. That's it. And here when it comes to contributing to knowledge, I say initially in the opening slides I was telling you, we are all claiming that you are adding to the existing knowledge, and this is one small case, just a single page. I thought I can tell you about a case. This one, there were many starvation, many deaths in Bangladesh. I think it was in 1968 or 69, I think. And many newspapers were reporting. Many newspapers were reporting about the non-availability of food. Every newspaper was reporting only about the non-availability of food, and because of that, people dying. Because of people dying and famine as the reason. And then Professor Amitaya Sen, he took up a study, and he because of this study, and for the first time, this Professor Amitaya Sen, he becomes a known person in the world. All the researchers start looking at who is this person, Amitaya Sen. Right, and this is the one that brought him to limelight. And then, of course, he was a great economist. Of course, there is nothing to deny. But this is his first study that made the world turn towards Amitaya Sen, that there is a great economist like this. And then many subsequent researches he has done. What he contributed was that all these newspapers and economists here in this country are reporting about a non-availability of food, and he was saying that it is not a question of non-availability, it is about access and affordability, because he has proved with his data food was available. He has proved with his data in Bangladesh, you keep talking about famine, non-availability of food, but food is available. He has proved through the production data and with various grains and other things available. With the data, he has proved that food is available in this country. The problem is access to people, affordability to people, right? You have not made an arrangement. There is no institutional arrangement like our ration shops here. There is no ration shops for people to access. It was available somewhere and people could not access, number one. And moreover, wherever it was available, it was not beyond the affordability of the people. That is the problem. So enable access, enable affordability, and that's how you can make food available. It is not just talking about availability, non-availability. The question is about access and affordability. So that is what the research breakthrough he made there, his contribution to that to solve that particular problem. And then now recently, Professor Robert Chambers, he has come with two more additions. He is saying it is not about availability, access, and affordability. He is adding two more to that. He is talking about absorption and antibodies also. And this is going to the nutritional side of it, which I don't want to go into this detail. But what I wanted to say was that when you take up a research or a big question, you must be able to come out with something significant and add to the existing knowledge. And Professor Amartya Sen has added here to the existing knowledge. Professor Robert Chambers has added to the existing knowledge. So what is it that I am going to add to the existing knowledge? And this is something that must be reeling in our mind when we are writing, when we are doing our research, when we are doing our analysis. Is there something new that I am going to come out with? Something significant that I should be able to talk about. So this must be there. So the next thing is you need to decide between, when you write, what style you want to write in. Is it engaging storytelling or take me seriously kind of reporting? Because there are many researchers who take this path of take me seriously kind of reporting. Sometimes you want to see that data, evidence, and all that very dry. It will be very dry, but nobody can punch a hole in the report because it is all supported with the data and evidences, and whatever conclusion you have drawn or from evidences, nobody can punch a hole there. But if somebody has to very patiently read that, it will be a boring drudge to read because you have completely used only data analysis and it is not very interesting to read, but what you have come out with is something significant. That is what I call take me seriously kind of reporting. And there are also researchers who write kind of engaging storytelling. It is possible also with the data. And it is not that I'm talking about qualitative research. Even in quantitative research, engaging storytelling is possible. There are many interesting books on how do you tell a story with data, right? Or the title is Storytelling with Data. Such books are also available if you want to read some samples of how do they tell a story with data, right? And then finding an effective voice. You must find an effective voice to say that. And what do I mean by voice? As we go, you will understand, because even here you can understand the voice. The second one, take me seriously reporting, you can understand what kind of a voice this will have. Engaging storytelling, you can understand what kind of voice this will have, right? You can understand that, right? And then impersonal language, when don't avoid all such impersonal language. Instead, generally now the APA style 7, APA style guide 7, it is suggesting don't get confused with I, my, we, all that. Use all over they. Use they, their, like that you can use also. If you are confused with he, she, whether to use he, bar, she, or I, if you have confusion, don't bother about all that. Just consistently use they all over. That's a suggestion given from APA style guide 7 now, right? So suppose you want to make your personal I, we, you want to change impersonal. Just for example, instead of saying I cannot understand, you can say it is difficult to understand, because you want to avoid the word I cannot understand. Don't say I cannot understand. Say it is difficult to understand. You are avoiding I. Many people were confused. Don't say many people were confused. You can say there was a lot of confusion. Many people climbed. Don't say many people climbed. Say it is widely climbed. So like that, you can see how in another way I can write the same thing. In another way, avoiding I, we, all that, how I can write, you can think also. Like I mentioned earlier, they as third person singular, underline this. They say they can be used as also a third person singular also you can use, right? You can use, and this is from APA 7, right? And so the idea of a research report is you have found a big question for which you searched. No one seems to have a convincing answer or explanation. And you set out a methodological path, a scientific research procedure to unravel that question. You found an answer, an explanation, and you are communicating your findings to the world through a report along with the credibility of the procedures and outcome of your research. This is what you are attempting, right? So the outcome of your research might add to the existing body of knowledge, or you may confirm or reaffirm. You may disprove the findings of the previous researchers, and you can explain your own way, right, from the perspective you have. So you can also construct your storyline when you write any thesis. In my opinion, it must be able to tell a story. Like, for example, here where I am working in a National Institute of Rural Development, when we take up constantly, we are taking up research because there is a research fund available within the institute. We can take up small research studies, and every year 1 or 2, and we can present also. When we present, what we most of the time we present is, with our data, will we be able to tell us a coherent story, right? If the story is coherent, if the story is clear, and that is more likely to be accepted, And when I say storytelling, I'm not just telling you that fictional storytelling, because you see, all we are discussing about is academic writing. All we are talking about is academic writing. Academic writing is about non-fiction writing. So when I say story, please don't relate with fiction writing. This is story with data, story supported by data. Right? So you must organize, classify your data, and present your data in a cogent way so that it tells a captive story, right? You can collect your data debris may be with you, you have analyzed the data, but you must know how to make your data speak. If you don't know how to make your data doesn't speak for itself, right? Because as I told you, the same data, you give it to somebody else, they will write something different. The same data you give to a third person, he may explain in a different way. So it is you who make your data speak, right? So you must make your data speak, and you must construct a storyline with your data. If the story is inconsistent back and forth, then nobody is going to listen to your story, and nobody is going to accept your thesis, and your thesis is going to be a boring drudge to read. So you must know also how to tell the story with your data, and there must be a coherence, consistency in your story. So when it comes to conclusion, recall the research questions you started with, briefly state the objectives, and recollect the hypothesis. I told you earlier also, when you have to write your conclusion part, you must always have this in mind. So your scientific procedure, unbiased procedure you follow, and your perspective also must be clear. What is your perspective, and is it from the labor point of view or management point of view you are taking, or from the government point of view, or from the corporate's point of view you are taking, or from the market point of view, or civil society point of view? What is your perspective? Civil society perspective, or government perspective, or market perspective, or management perspective, or labor perspective? What is your perspective must be clear, so that all through consistently it can go right. So your argument as a conversation with the reader, it must be persuading, convincing, and influencing, I told you. And what is your claim? What reasons support your claim? What evidences support your reason? And do I acknowledge alternative arguments or rival explanations? This is something very important. When you write, every statement that you make, every claim you make, by every claim, what I mean is every important statement that you are making from your data. Every important statement you are making from your data. That's what I mean. So you must also ask alternative questions, alternative arguments, rival explanations somebody can come with, right? So these things it must be there for you to be able to write well. So what principles make my reasons relevant to my claim? You must understand this. So here I'm just giving you one paragraph only. I keep saying, what do I mean by saying these sentences when it is written, how it looks like? Just for an example, I brought this: claim, reason, evidences. Like, for example, let me read this paragraph for you, and you can just see only the green words there. Claim, reason supporting the claim, evidence 1 supporting the claim, evidence 2 supporting the claim 2. What is my conclusion, right? So let me read now. My claim, first claim is, despite distribution of land titles, a large section of tribal population remained landless. This is my claim from my data. My data tells me to make this statement. I have made this statement. Despite distribution of land titles, a large section of tribal population remained landless. This is my statement from my data. Right? Yes. What is my reason for supporting the claim? A sizable portion has not received records of right. They don't have records of right. Through my data, I found many people don't have records of right. So that is my reason for supporting the claim. And what is my second reason? Claims of many tribal people for forest patta remain pending or stand rejected. Either they are pending, they stand rejected, then how do you say you gave land to the tribals? So that is my evidence to support my claim. So the government has not taken any concrete steps for restoration of unlawfully alienated tribals. Tribals were unlawfully alienated and the government has not taken any step. And I have evidences for this. And then from all these, my conclusion is tribal land alienation continues to be a matter of concern. So you cannot say, the government cannot say that they have solved all the land related problems of the tribal. And today also it exists. My study proves this. Tribal land alienation continues to be a matter of concern. This is not a simple statement that you are making. I mean, suppose a government, state government asks you to come and prove, you should be able to prove with your data. Tribal land continues, alienation continues, you are saying. Through your thesis, can you give me your evidences? You should be able to give this one. So this is what a thesis is. When you make a claim, when you make a statement, for every statement you have a reason, you have evidences, you have 2-3 evidences to support, then only you can make a conclusive statement. This is something you must understand in writing. So any statement you make, you must have this in mind. Right. And then referencing, I don't have to tell you in text citation, and then the same must be in the references also. This I don't have to tell you, and we'll see as we go also. And Zotero, I hope when you write for referencing, you can always use the research assistant referencing. The automated referencing systems are there. Like Zotero is the one I use. That is very I mean, simple to use, so I'm using that. So maybe you can try also. It makes referencing easy and the presentation scientific. If you want to change citation style later on for the purpose of a journal, Zotero can automatically do it for you. The reference manager in MS Word also has a reference manager. You can use that also. It is very simple, but Zotero is equally easy. You can use that, and Zotero is a specialized reference manager. It is designed for it. So I would say that you can try this. If you have not downloaded, you can download this as Zotero, and then you can try. It will appear in your Word, and then whatever literature review you make, it can all get accumulated there. It will all be there, and anytime you need, you can just with a click you will be able to take that. And also when it comes to citations and all, it makes your job easy and scientific. And when it goes for journals and they find that you have done it in a proper way, and it is most likely your paper will be accepted. So those of you who are using MS Word reference manager, okay, you can go ahead using MS Word reference manager, but this is Zotero is not very difficult. So you can just try downloading Zotero, number one. And also you can see in YouTube videos also. Just for 10-15 minutes, you will understand how to use this one, and you will be able to do that. And also we must understand the difference between bibliography and references. Right, this is what I meant when I said nuts and bolts. Means very small details also we must know. Bibliography is about all the books and papers that you read, and in your thesis what you're supposed to give is references, and giving bibliography, not giving is optional. It is optional, but referencing must be there. Whatever in text citation you made, referencing must be there. And you cannot avoid referencing. If there is an in-text citation, it must be supported with a reference. So referencing is very important. Bibliography, it depends on universities. It depends on your choice also as a researcher, you want to give or not. Right. And then referencing style, I told you already that there are APA referencing, Chicago, Harvard, all that, and many journals I find they are using APA referencing. And which style guide do you use in your university? It depends on your university guidelines, and you can use automated style guides, like it can be MS Word reference manager or Zotero, or there are also others like Manley APA citation generator, all that. But I found Zotero easy, so I'm using Zotero. You can try the others also. All right. And then narrative, description, explanation, you need to know these differences. And when you describe in writing, there are several genres of writing like narration, description, explanation, arguments, persuasion. So you need to have the differences and the word power to use all these. You must have so that it is easy. For example, here I am just giving you the difference between description and explanation. We say we take up descriptive study, right? By descriptive studies, what is meant is that you are going to draw a picture of what happened. That's all. You just explain what happened, how it happened, why it happened, what is your explanation about. You don't go into explanations, right? To explain means to account for what happened and showing why and how it happened. And if we can describe, sometimes it is possible that we can describe without explanation, but we cannot really explain without describing. You must first describe, later to go for explanation. Therefore, explanation goes further than description. So anything you do, you are only describing, and going beyond describing is required at PhD level dissertation, the thesis, and the explanation is required. So description focuses on what is the case, and explanation focuses on why or how something is the case. And the description is used mostly in descriptive research. And if it is inferential research you are using, definitely you may have to go for explanation based on whatever results you get in your data analysis. You need to be able to explain the data, right? So description is the first step towards explanation. You can say that. You can say that. And I don't want to go into the details of this, all these. This is an example for descriptive study. And then if you read this Banker to the Poor, if you read this book, Banker to the Poor, you can clearly understand that this man starts with the describing. I mean, Professor Muhammad Yunus, Banker to the Poor, the man propounded the idea of self-help groups. And he has, as a third person, initially he is describing what happened. If you read the book, you will understand. He is describing what happened, and then he proceeds to tell us why it happened. He tells us his explanation of why it happened, the way it happened, all that he is explaining. So, I mean, that's what I say. When you have to write more, you need to read more. When you read more, when you pay attention to details like this, about what this man is narrating, what this man is describing, what this man is explaining, you should be able to distinguish. You will be able to distinguish after some time if you keep reading many things, if you keep applying in your writing also such things. So description focuses on what is the case, whereas explanation focuses on why it is the case. If you want to know why something happens, it is important to have good description, exactly what happened. And this, I don't, I mean, I think I'm going too far. So let me just quickly go to complete. Yeah, I was telling you about policies and evidence-based policy making, because these days policy making, it must be evidence-based. Here I have just given an example. There is a high positive correlation between serving hot meal, that is cooked meal in the school, noon meal, midday meal, and school attendance in rural schools. I repeat, there is a high positive correlation between serving hot meal, cooked meal in the school and school attendance in rural schools. We can make this statement. Okay. Proper toilet facilities in school improve attendance level of adolescent girls in the school. Can we make this statement? Yes, we can make this statement. So if there is cooked meal, if there is noon meal available, poor children also tend to go to school. So attendance in rural schools go more when there is assured that there is cooked meal available and noon meal is available. That is positive correlation. So attendance and children attending school correlation, positive correlation. Similarly, if there is a proper toilet facility available, it is possible adolescent girls tend to go to school, because I mean, so this is another thing we can say. Yes, these are understandable. Intuitively you can accept this also. Let us extend our question a little. I saw this in one research paper, that's why I am bringing. Let's extend our research question a little. Noon meal served in rural schools improve school attendance. Does it enhance learning outcome also? There is a researcher, he has argued, because of this noon meal, the learning outcome has improved. In other words, serving noon meal may positively affect attendance. Yes, it is possible. It may positively affect attendance. Attendance level may go up. But can we say that it is affecting learning outcome? this will become erroneous. This is wrong. If we relate attendance directly to learning outcome, that is going to be wrong, right? So this is where I'm saying that when you don't have proper data, when you don't understand the data, when you don't understand if you have sufficient evidence or not, you cannot make such statements. Whatever statement you are making, you must have proper data to support, proper evidence to support. So here in this case, the data you have can only support that cooked noon meal served, it improves attendance level. That's all you can say. You cannot say that it is improving learning outcomes. You don't have data to say that. So that's the point I wanted to mention here. So any arguments you make, any statements you make, and you must anticipating objections and questions, you must thicken your claim. You must thickening your claim means you must have supportive evidences. Imagine your readers and then responses to what might come in their mind, and the evidence for supporting a claim, making a claim, sub-claim, conclusion, and all these. And then finally, you can leave some loose end. If there is some loose end for which you don't have data, you have not collected data, that is what goes into further research. So you don't have to worry that, oh, I don't have data about that. So you cannot go back again collecting data. So if there is some loose end, then don't try to prove that. Just leave that loose end, say that is for the further research, that you can leave like that. All right. So right. And then recommendations. Any recommendation you make must relate to your findings. This is another thing that I find in many of the theses that I come across. I find that they have made many recommendations, but there is no relevance in the findings. There are no related findings. You see the last point here. A reviewer can always ask you, which of your findings makes you give recommendation 3? You gave recommendation, let's say, for example, like a recommendation 3. And this you make this recommendation, but which of your finding is asking for this recommendation? There is no finding that related to this recommendation. This recommendation come from some other study from somewhere in his context or her context. You have taken that from there, or maybe intuitively it occurred to you originally. Okay, you wrote, but what is your finding? Where is this? Which finding is it connected to? Like, you must see like that. Whenever you make a recommendation, make sure that your recommendations must flow from the conclusions you make. Your recommendation must flow from the findings you make. You cannot just half-hand make recommendations. Generic kind of recommendations you cannot make. You must know that. Now, I'll just tell you how to write an abstract. Just when you write an abstract, we don't have a formula to write an abstract. Here I'm just giving you 2 formulas. You can write the context, problem, and main point, or the context, problem, and the launching point. These 2 formula you can have, and this is what I call nut and bolt, that we need to understand. When you read carefully other people's abstracts, how they write, you can understand this thing. Here, for an example, I am giving context, problem, main point. You can see the brown ones, the context, problem, the main point. The erstwhile Ministry of Drinking Water Sanitation introduced inclusive service delivery policy in 2011. This is the context, right? This is an abstract I am giving you, abstract of a research paper. And then a study conducted by UNDP has come out with the results that show that the main villages in Gram Panchayats have been covered, whereas SC/ST habitations are underserved. That is my problem. And then in this study, in the current study that I have taken up, it was found equity has been achieved in terms of adequacy and safety of water supply. However, in terms of distance traveled and regularity of water supply, SC/ST habitations are underserved. This is the main point in my finding. In my thesis, this is the main point I found. Suppose I say this. This is how you must give an abstract. One is you are giving a context, 1 sentence, and the problem in another sentence, and then the main point that you have found out in a 3rd sentence. So it need not be 3 sentences. It can be 6 sentences, 9 sentences, 150 words, whatever. But you must see you use this formula: context, problem, main point. And suppose you want to keep some suspense. You don't want to give the main point. You want to keep some suspense. My second one will work for you. Context, problem, and launching point. The same context you give, the same problem you give, and don't give the main point. Instead, you say, this study has made an attempt to find out if equity has been achieved in drinking water supply on 4 important parameters: adequacy, safety, distance traveled, and regularity. I have studied this, and these are the parameters on which I have studied. You want to know what I found out, you read my paper. You read my full paper. Right. So this is the second way of writing it: context, problem, and what is the launching point. This is the launching point. You don't give the main point because you want the reader to read your full paper, and instead of just reading only the abstract. So you must know these small things which I call nuts and bolts in writing. Right. So variety, keep variety in presentation, like diagrams, paragraphs, listing of points, vertical listing, horizontal listing, all these, and boxes. Use boxes liberally wherever you think that the text is going to disturb the original text that you're writing, and you think that a small case, you want to give a small case, and you think if you start writing the case that is going to disturb your text, then give a box and then give that in a box. That can be done. And you must also know that whatever that will disturb the main text, that can go to the annexures also, you must know. And many people, without knowing what is abbreviation, what is acronym, they write also abbreviation, acronyms. You must see here, the first list I have given on the left side are abbreviations, and on the ones on the right are acronyms. We must know the difference between acronyms and abbreviations. When UNDP, USA, NIRD, NGO, CBI, IMF, BBC, such things, this I call abbreviations, because these are just individual letters you are pronouncing. But the other side, you see, all these are abbreviations, I mean contracted forms, but I read like a word, like UNICEF, UNESCO, ISEC, AIDS, RAM, PIN, right? So this is also abbreviation, but you read like a word. If you can read it like a word, that is called acronym, right? And if you are saying UNDP individually, that is abbreviation, but you are giving them together. But you must know, with not knowing what is abbreviation, what is acronym, we should not be giving all these. So that's what I'm just trying to tell you. Okay. And then numbers and bullets. This also we liberally, wherever we feel like using number, we use. Wherever we use bullets, we use bullets. It cannot be like that. Like, for example, here I have given the numbers on the left. There are 3 ways of writing an abstract of a research report. I opened like saying, there are 3 ways of writing abstract of a research report. That is context, problem, main point. Context, problem, launching point. Just presenting a summary. So you see, I have told you that I am going to tell you 3 ways of 1, 2, 3. So I am giving numbers here. Here on the right side, you see I have given bullets. I don't number them. I deliberately don't number them. You must know that I should not use numbers here on the right side. To describe the poor, we have very rich vocabulary. To describe the poor people, we say marginalized, the downtrodden, the underprivileged, the destitute, the poverty-stricken, the empty-handed, the fortuneless, the penurious. We have many different vocabulary words we are using to describe the poor. I am giving them in bullets. I don't give number here. Why I don't give number here? Because this list can go on and on and on. I know only these 7, 8 I know. But if I give you, maybe you will be able to add 2, 3 words that you known to you. Another person may add another 5, 6. So this can go on. But here I have clearly mentioned it is only 3. I mentioned already also on the title, there are 3 ways. I need to give 3. If you say objectives also, when you write objectives, please, objectives of your study, do not use bullets. Please always use only numbers, because objectives, it is clear that you will have only 3 objectives or 4 objectives or 5, whatever number, but it is determined that you will have 4 or 5. Right, you cannot contract, and nobody can add or delete to that. So you must give numbers only, don't give bullets in your objectives. And I hope this is understandable. And this is what I call this is numbers and bullets. Similarly, we take for granted listing also, like vertical. I call this vertical listing. Listing content, tone, accuracy, brevity, clarity. Right. So this one I have vertical listing here. By vertical listing, what I mean is that each point I have given in vertical order: content, tone, accuracy. Determinants of an effective document. One is content. Does it cover all the relevant points? Tone. Is it appropriate for the purpose? Accuracy. Are the facts correct and supported? Brevity. Are there wasted words and phrases? Clarity. Is the language plain, clear? So I have this I am giving in vertical listing. And let me give you a horizontal listing. This is an example of a horizontal listing. When you want to list, you are listing horizontally here. Your answer to these questions will influence the changes you make to, number one, the content, and number two, the way you present the information, number three, the type of language you use, like that. So this, you see, it is going in a horizontal paragraph, like it is going like a paragraph. Here it is going, coming one by one. That's it. So you need to decide. These are small things. That's why I told you that I'm going to tell you the nuts and bolts of writing. So this, it might sound very simple and trivial to you, but these are important things, important decisions, that which one will work. Shall I go horizontal listing? Will it be okay? And if I have to catch the attention, then I have to go for vertical listing, right? So these are small things that matter. So I thought I must tell you this. And then example, when you want to give an example, you must give a very clear example. And sometimes it happens, you start giving an example and not being able to make people understand through example, you go to give an example to the example you are giving. That is wrong. When you give an example, give a clear example, right? So finding a voice, I told you already, engaging a storytelling or take me seriously kind of reporting, right? I think I'm sorry, because for want of time, I think I'll run like this. Right, I'm almost towards the end. Dictionary, use a good dictionary. Your right click does not always help. Don't depend on the right click. You use a good dictionary, and then you need to also have collocations. Perhaps some of you know, and you are already using a collocations dictionary also. And I would strongly suggest dictionary is essential, and maybe thesaurus may be an essential also. And you can have collocations dictionary also. What do I mean by collocations dictionary? For example, here the last red colored ones you see, strong rain, severe rain. Can we say rain? Suppose you want to add an adjective to rain. Strong rain, severe rain, can we say? Or heavy rain, lashing rain, we say. How do we say that? For example, idea, the word idea. The word idea, which words it goes with? Can we say brilliant idea, bright idea, clever idea, excellent idea, good idea, great idea, radical idea, marvelous idea, bad idea, absurd idea, crazy idea, right? So, I mean, we must know which word goes with which word, right? That's what I mean. You must know properly. Otherwise, improper use of such words will sound un-English, and it will not sound like English. That's what my point is. Similarly, hypothesis. When you say hypothesis, you must know construct a hypothesis, right? Accept a hypothesis or acceptable hypothesis, bold hypothesis, testable hypothesis. This is not a testable hypothesis, scientific hypothesis, examine hypothesis, prove hypothesis, disprove hypothesis, confirm hypothesis, right? So you must know which words go with hypothesis. So that when you write, it looks like a professional writing. Otherwise, it will be like somebody who is learning to write. It should not sound like that, right? So the same thing here again, some more example about poverty also. We cannot, yeah. And if you make some field notes and field diary, suppose you make, and field notes, this is your own shorthand technique for making points, and you can use your field notes in your dissertation. But if you use a field diary is your interpretation that cannot come into your dissertation, the thesis. That's what I wanted to tell you. And perhaps it has been discussed, I think, already. Plagiarism, stealing others' ideas should not be done. And there is a similarity check done in all the papers, in thesis also. So in NARD, we accept up to 10%. And similarly, many institutions accept 10 to 20%, and some institutions maximum 20%, I think. Otherwise, it will be considered as stolen work. So you must be careful to see that you don't, when you take others' work, you must properly cite their work and then acknowledge them. That's it. You want to read books, you can read. There are many interesting books you must read as researchers. And my suggestion is, reading this book is okay. If you want to read just one book cover to cover, I wanted to give this recommendation. This is one book I enjoyed reading cover to cover. This is an excellent book. Somebody must read from cover to cover. And there are many good books that you must read also. I think that's all I have. I will stop sharing here. If there is any question, maybe we can. I think I have not taken more time. I think, yeah, 25.
So participants, if you have any questions, kindly raise your hands.
Thank you. No questions at all. Oh, I'm sorry. But if they are writing, thank you, wonderful.
Yes, sir.
I will take like that, or there is silence means I'm afraid. I'm afraid.
They said they are very nice presentation.
Session solution at the end of. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, sir. So they
I
are
think,
clear.
yeah, I think perhaps I have taken a long time, so they don't want to ask questions. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So this is, I mean, I don't know. I have whatever I learned, whatever that I think I must be following. I am just presenting them, and maybe I would suggest you can. There are many good, interesting books also you can read on this. I would strongly say that we must read at least some 20, 30 good papers cover to cover. Be able to write well, and we must keep writing also. That's the way to improve our writing. Like I told you, this great artist Picasso's story, that writing doesn't come just day after tomorrow. We have to keep practicing, right? So like I told you, that this man has been practicing for 30 years to be able to do that in 30 seconds, right? So we must keep practicing. Writing comes through practicing, and when you want to write more, you need to read more, and it will demand, when you write more, it will demand you to read more. That we must understand, right? I think it was useful, and many are writing only thank you, very good only. So yeah, this somebody is asking about publishing paper in Scopus Journal. That I think it was I didn't cover that, because it was I found it was yesterday. It was there was a good suggestion about how do you find a journal when you want to publish your paper. How do you find a journal appropriate that will take your paper? And Professor, I think Ramsamy was giving very good examples about journal finder, journal selector, and journal suggester. Such things are there, and that's how I search also. You give your title, and your abstract. It will suggest which journals are likely to take, and you can take from there. You can take from which one is likely to take the shortest time. You can go ahead with that, and let us not take the shortcut of paying for publishing. So let us not take such shortcuts. That's my suggestion. Thank you, madam. If that is all, thank
Okay,
you.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for clarifying our doubts. Now I call Professor Janathan to give vote of thanks.
Yes, good evening. Good evening to everyone and all present here. Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Dr. R. Ramesh, respected Director, Dr. S. Daniels, Academic Director, Dr. Fatima Vasant, Principal, Dr. Usha George, and Vice Principals, SIFT 2, Dr. Arogyameri Geeta Rufus, and SIFT 1, Dr. Meena, and all the participants. It is such an honor for me to get the opportunity to thank you all dignitaries. On behalf of the Commerce Department, SIFT 2, Patrician College of Arts and Science, I would like to express my gratitude to all the esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence and contributions to make this webinar a great success. I extend my gratitude to our Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. R. Ramesh, to take out time from his busy schedule to grace this event. Thank you, sir, for inspiring and encouraging us with your words on this special day. I extend my sincere thanks to Vice Principal SIFT 2, Dr. Arogyameri Geeta Rufus, for their guidance and constant support to succeed in this program. Thank you, ma'am. I extend my gratitude to Dr. Sweetie Regina Mary, Head of the Department of Commerce, to organize a webinar such a grand success. I must thank the IQAC team members, Professor Daniel sir and Professor Nagarjan sir, for their support to conduct the program. I congratulate all the participants for their active participation. Thank you all. So once again, I thank you all. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Ramesh, sir. Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening. Thank you.
So dear participants, so now I would share attendance link with the chat box. So please all of them kindly fill